Thank you.
Hello.
I'm Robert. I'm a civic hacker from Iceland.
I'm Gunnar. I'm also a civic hacker from Iceland. Would it be possible to have the presentation itself on the monitors? Okay. Like we said, we're civic hackers. We believe in people. We believe that in order to have a healthy society, then we must have citizens involved in the policy making and in the participation of the city.
Yeah, and we started the Citizens Foundation literally a few weeks after the financial crisis hit Iceland in 2008. And it was a big crisis of money and central banks and the institutions and things like that. But it was an even bigger crisis of trust. So suddenly, like my grandfather, I was living in London at the time, he called me and he was on his way to the bank with a black garbage bag to try to take out all his money before the bank would close. So it was a big crisis of trust in the government, in the institutions, in the companies, in the banks. And even if the financial crisis now has sort of abated, the trust crisis is still going on in Iceland. And I think like we had the trust in the parliament at the bottom was 9%. It's now recovered to 14%. So there's still a long way to go.
So just to be clear, that's 1-4 and not 4-0. So there's no trust in Iceland in the institution, as can be seen in the rise of the Icelandic Pirate Party, but which seems now to be on the way down again. So it's interesting elections coming up in a few weeks. Now, in order to connect the citizens with the authorities, in order to try to bridge this trust gap, we created this platform called Your Priorities, which is designed to allow large groups to find out their common priorities and organize around them. And as we totally agree with the last speaker, thank you, by the way, for a brilliant presentation, the software used in smart cities, in modern cities, it has to be open source once you're making any kind of decisions, because that's the only kind of software design you can trust.
Yeah, and we decided to start to build this open source software, that's back in 2008. But since then, we've had contributions from into the software itself. There's been contributions from many different sources, from America, from all sorts of places, and the software sort of always keeps on getting more useful as more people contribute to it. And open source means that it's not only owned by the people who actually make the software, but it's also owned by the people who use it.
We go one step further, actually. It's open source, so everybody is free to use it and change it in any way, but we also provide free hosting, so everybody can use it immediately without any cost to them. Now, it is a tool. It will not do any work for you, really. You have to use tools the way that they can help you in your work. It's in Norwegian, lots of other languages, really easy to translate. I know you have dialects and different versions. And it's smartphone native, as we'll see better when we go on, and it's been used all around the world. And we've had, this is like 800,000 now, Robert? Yeah, something like that, since 2008. And it's been used, yes, I won't read out the names of the countries, but we'll give you a few examples later on. And yeah, maybe...
Yeah, those are some of the projects we've been working on. Most of those projects share one thing in common. Most of them are bottom-up projects. Those are projects by smaller civil society organizations working on participatory budgeting, for example. And there is a big movement in Europe, in America, especially in South America, a movement of civic hackers working with government, with local government, the national government, of bringing up this sort of a bottom-up style of creating those solutions, which is actually quite efficient, because you're actually the people you are empowering are the same people who are helping building those solutions.
Yeah, and there are projects of all scales, there, from really small projects to transnational EU projects, etc. Now, one thing that our software is really special about is that it has a debate system that effectively it makes it impossible to argue. We do not get those internet comment things where someone says this and another one says no, and then people start calling each other idiots and worse in just a few minutes. This does not exist in our system because we have split the screen into two sides where you have the debate points for the idea on the left and the debate point against the idea on the right. And this effectively means that people have to come out with their point in a clear way in trying to convince others to their arguments, to their side.
Yeah, and go back one again.
Okay,
and,
you want to see? Yep.
Yeah, so when you've written your point and when other people see it, it's not possible to comment on it. There's no comment button or anything. The only way to interact with it is to write a standalone point.
And what this means also is that we get rational debate, obviously, and positive points, but even maybe more importantly, or at least as importantly, is that the minority view and the majority view have equal weights. So if that even means that there's a minority of maybe 50 people against 500 people, their voice is still heard on the same visual level when you view the concepts or the ideas on the website. And not go really deep into this, but we have abuse protection so that if someone is unhappy about something and goes about it in a bit quite vocal way, then we can ban that user, but this has never happened yet.
Because the key thing is that people can vote the ideas up or down, they can give them support or not, but they can also vote the points for and against up and down. So it's actually the people are sort of crowdsourcing what are the most important ideas and what are the most important points for and against them.
So there's no formal admin moderation, obviously at the back end if case things really go bad, but this is crowd moderated, so to speak. And the system works in a very simple way. The people participating add their ideas and they add their points, and then those ideas and points are voted on by the citizens. And what that means basically is that we get a crowdsourced list of the best ideas or priorities and the best points for and against them. And what this means for the owner or for the organization using the software is what they get out of this is a crowdsourced list, not only of the best ideas, but also of lots of other good ideas that can really help in other ways. And obviously, as has been mentioned before, much higher public acceptance and satisfaction because their own ideas are being used in their environment.
And so we launched our first sort of website in early 2009, but our first sort of really successful project in terms of mass participation was in 2010. So back in 2010, the political situation in Iceland was still very tense. The financial crisis was just sort of still unfolding, and there was a new political party that was running for the city election called the Best Party, and which was run by Iceland's most sort of famous comedian, Gunnar, who then later became mayor. And so a week before the city elections in 2010, we sent all the political parties running for the election an introduction and offering them to take part in Better Reykjavik, sort of an exciting opportunity to discuss the issues facing the city. Only one political party, actually the Best Party, they jumped on it. Because at the time, the Best Party was basically a joke party. Their main policy was to put a big giant polar bear into the children's petting zoo and like free towels in the swimming pools and things like that. So they basically told all their supporters, go to this website and help us to come up with the policy for the next 4 years. And we had tens of thousands of people participated. It was in all the media all the time. And then actually the Best Party won the election. I mean, not only because they did this, it surely helped. And they really, a lot of the top ideas coming from people made it into the policy platform that they then made with the Social Democrats.
And it harmonized extremely well with what was being said in the last presentation, is that the participation of people, once they were asked to come forth and do something and just give out ideas, it was incredible to see it happening.
And you can see a screenshot of it, and it's basically it's quite simple. It's We have both participatory budgeting projects, I'll talk about it a bit later, but also we have something called Your Voice at the City Council table. And basically after the election, the Best Party and us, we worked to actually integrate Better Reykjavik into the city administration. And it's been now integrated for 6 years, and it's still going strong and always being evolved. And basically people can put in ideas like as an agenda setting, where their ideas can be discussed at the different city council committees if they're the top ideas in that category in a month. But yeah. And so the technology, this open source technology we've developed, we started it in 2008, and the level of sort of how website worked and everything was at a certain stage back then. In 2014, we started to think about doing a big upgrade, and we saw mobile usage on the rise a lot. So basically what we did is that we rewrote all the software, all the open source software, using this sort of a new sort of web technology which makes websites work like apps. So if you're using the website on a mobile phone, you visit it, and then it loads into your browser, but then you click on something, then everything happens immediately. It's more like an app.
Yeah.
And you can just see, those are basically some screenshots of it. And yeah.
That's the idea collection part. Well, maybe just a quick run through. This would be the front page of the Kópavogur PB, which is one of the projects we're running back in Iceland. And this is the idea where you add your idea. And it's really, really important, as we'll emphasize a bit more later, is that this kind of things have to be simple to use, they have to be easy to use, but they also have to be fun. Because if they're not fun, people are not going to use them.
Yeah, and one of the big lessons we've learned in terms of giving as wide accessibility to those tools as we can is to simplify, always to simplify the experience and make it more simple and streamlined. Because if you face a complicated website, that puts up a barrier to a lot of people. Either it's too much trouble because it's too complicated, or it's just too complicated.
Yeah, and it used to be that it was a civic duty to go and vote, and for a lot of people it still is, but for a lot of people it just unfortunately is not anymore. So it has to be fun if we want to have the future and current generation participating. And we actually also archive older stuff. Just a quick one. You can see here our PB projects reaching back. And yeah, we talked about this a bit before. Maybe just this with the Google Android. If you're used to using the Google Android apps, then your priorities apps works more or less the same way. It's the same interface. And that's what it looks on mobile. And you can do anything. You can even, on a mobile, you can even get more information and click this link and get even more information about the project that is there on the map.
Yeah, and basically, back in early 2014, we had about 12% of people were using our website on mobile phones. But we could show a big increase from like late 2013 to early 2014 was a big 50% jump or something. So we were very happy that we were proven right in terms of having then spent 2 years and a lot of our time, both personal time, a lot of the Citizens Foundation work is volunteer work, and we spent a lot of time implementing this version for mobile. And then when we did the first launch with the city of Kópavogur of a participatory budgeting project, collecting ideas, we had 42% in 2016 were using the websites on mobile. And actually, we're doing now projects with the city of Reykjavik, and we saw it at 48% last month. So we're probably at the end of the year, we'll see more people use those sort of solutions on mobile phones than on desktop. So basically, mobile is the platform. You can't just have a sort of a second-hand experience where, oh yeah, people on the mobiles, they can see a bit of the experience. The whole experience he needs to work really well on mobiles.
So it doesn't only have to be open source, it doesn't only have to be fun, but it has to work on mobile as well. So, yeah. And yeah, we also create a separate set of software called Open Active Voting to have PB voting, formal voting on our participatory budgeting projects.
Yeah, and maybe just talk a little bit about we started to develop the first participatory budget in Reykjavik in 2011, and we launched it in 2012. And we're also working with the city of Kópavogur in Iceland. And we also do, we've been doing projects in the next slide.
Yeah, but
Projects we're consulting on the Madrid participatory budgeting projects. And we're also doing, projects in Eastern Europe, in Croatia, Slovenia, Hungary, but also now more recently with few of the municipalities in Scotland are trying out our sort of solutions.
So as you may know and may have heard, the participatory budgeting is in fashion. It's very good. It's the PB projects going on all over the world. Like former presentation said, it started in South America, but now it's everywhere.
And I'm going to tell you now, so a little bit how this sort of project works. So basically, in Iceland, similar to Paris, about 4 to 5% of the city sort of construction budget is sort of allocated, through this process. And I'll take that.
Yeah, of course.
And just as a side note, last year we won the Nordic Best Practice Challenge Prize. It's an award by a forum of the mayors of the Nordic capitals and to analyze the different processes, and we won that award for them. And it's actually quite simple, and it's all about the citizens. So citizens submit ideas as the first thing about what to improve in their neighborhood. They look out their window and they say, okay, so it'd be nice if my children had more access to that. There would be a little playground or there's a missing cycle path or whatever it is. Then the city of Reykjavik evaluates the costs. How much it's going to cost to build this outdoors classroom or whatever it is.
And obviously, if it's out of scope, if it's not within the concept of the PP project.
Yeah. And then the citizens vote on the ideas in sort of a final binding budget votes. The city then builds it, and then the citizens use the results. And the basic mission is to improve the city of Reykjavik according to the citizens' wishes. It also teaches citizens about budgets. It teaches citizens to be smart about understanding that when you want to build a bench somewhere, something simple as a bench, park bench, somewhere, and people think, oh, it's a bench, it must just cost like 1,000 kroners or something. It's easy, just put it down. But often people don't realize you actually have to work the ground underneath it to make sure it doesn't fall down into, things like that. So it's quite educational. Mm-hmm. And this is an example of, we had a record number of 915 ideas were collected now in June, July for the My Neighbourhood project in Reykjavik. This is on the map. This is the city of Reykjavik, and basically we have citizens everywhere putting in ideas. And from 2012 to 2015, 420 ideas have been voted in by citizens and then, built in the neighborhoods. And here you can see it's been a sort of a slow, but with the new version of the software and with the sort of better mobile experience, we had a big explosion of ideas now this year, with 911 ideas.
And one really interesting observation is that we actually, with the new version for the first time, we saw ideas going viral. We saw citizens sharing their ideas or other people's ideas and other people liking them and sharing them. And actually, the majority of the traffic was coming from Facebook and other similar sources.
Yeah, that's basically just how many people then voted, in thousands, how many people took part in the actual voting process. This is happening now in November. We do the 2016 vote. It happens now in November. And so, as they say, the proof is in the pudding, and here you can see some of the ideas that have been submitted by citizens and then executed. A couple of years ago, there was a big trend of like what they call frisbee golf, which is used a lot now. It's like it's like frisbees, and then you put those things where you can throw it like golf. It's quite exciting.
So if you go back just one, so the basket is the hole for the frisbee, like in golf, but you just throw it. The thing is that this started becoming popular with the Better Neighbourhoods project, and they're now all over the city. And you can see people using them even in the winter.
And that's the thing with, most of those projects is that they are used. That's because it comes from sort of the ground of people actually, needing something. So it's a really good source of requirement. And, obviously the city planners are, often quite highly educated with and provide great input into this process. And the combination of the citizens' needs and then with the smarts of the city planners is doing really making Reykjavik a better city and a smarter city. And yeah, and there's just some final photos.
Yeah, maybe just another example. The stairs down there, they don't look like much, but what they do is they enable people from the whole neighborhood to easily go down to the beach and walk around there on nice days, which a lot of people do.
And just a little bit more on our, we also have a new version of this voting software. I'm just going to show you just quickly how it works. So here you see sort of the front page, and this is the city of Kópavogur, and you can select which neighborhood. There's 5 neighborhoods you can select from. And this is before the vote started, so there's 0 everywhere. Nobody, was there. But we had almost 13% of the city, population took part in this vote now in July. And for participatory budgeting projects, then 13% participation rate is really high. It's amongst the highest that happens.
That we have heard about, at least.
And so basically, people then select a neighborhood, and then this is their ballot. They can see basically, photos, a little text. They can see how much each of the project costs in millions of Icelandic crowns, and then they can select which ones they want. And they fill up the budget, and then some of the ideas are grayed out because they don't fit into the budget anymore. And we also have this map functionality, which is quite important to be able to, especially for those sort of ideas that are really about places and construction of things in places, having this sort of mapping support. You can actually, just use the mapping tool. You can do all your selection straight from the mapping tool.
But you also cannot select this idea because it's too expensive and it doesn't fit anymore. Robert calls this a ballot, and it is, but what it's also a basket. It's a basket at the supermarket, and you only have a selected amount of money that you're allowed to spend, and your basket tells you, okay, now this is fine, you can do this.
And this software, also, as the idea generation software we showed you earlier, which is your priorities, this is also open source. It means that you can download it, or your IT department, or whoever, and when you start to use it, you start to own it as well. When you start to contribute to it, you also own it, and and will make it better. And then when people are finished with the ballot, they just get like a little thank you for the participation and are encouraged to share it on Facebook. And that's one of the key sort of problems we've had with those sort of processes in the past, is that it's so difficult to get people's attention. So when you market something like this, when you open this sort of service, you need to look at it and do it in a professional way. You need to have a marketing budget. You need to have money to buy Facebook and Google advertisements, for example. Because if people don't know about the opportunity to participate, it's 100% chance they won't if they don't know about it.
But Robert is right. This is really the hardest part, and the most important part is how do we get participation, and the key point in that is obviously that we have to reach the people that are interested in participating. And just to give you a few examples of different projects that we have worked on in the past, they range in scale from national projects down to a small children's class. And Rahvakogu is quite interesting. In Estonia in 2011 and 2012, they had huge scandals of politicians being bought by corporations and done legally because of the laws being too open. And so the people in Estonia took to the streets for the first time since the Soviet liberation. And the president said that the parliament wasn't able to deal with those issues because they dealt with the members of parliament. So he called out to the grassroots to help them to lead a reform project. And the grassroots called out to us and asked, can we use your priorities? And we said, yes, it's open source and we'll help you in any way that we can.
Basically, there was a very sort of also a low budget exercise, very much driven by the grassroots organizations.
And tens of thousands of people participated, and what happened is that at the end, 7 out of the top 15 ideas from the process have now become Estonian law.
Including better support for smaller political parties, but also an idea of giving people sort of an agenda setting right in the parliament. So people can now submit a proposal that will be discussed in the parliament.
And just to give you a quick breakdown of the process that was used, the citizens put in the ideas for the law reforms. Then they had a citizens' assembly randomly selected with special help that created law proposals out of the ideas. And then the president of Estonia, he has the right to put the ideas, put proposals before the parliament, which he did. And he said, I am just a postman. And then the parliament debated and decided on the law proposals and changes. And this is really easy to map into different kind of processes.
And finally, we've done some pilot projects with the National Health Service in England, a project called NHS Citizen. And basically the idea and those pilots we've done in the past has been about gathering ideas, both online but also offline, and then sort of collecting them online again, and basically bringing those ideas to sort of an assembly of people, and then getting the feedback on those ideas to the board level of the National Health Service in England. And because we've can't cover everything in this presentation, tell you a little bit. We also have this third open source software, which is called Active Citizen, which is all about bringing artificial intelligence and machine learning to empower people and citizens, democratically. And we actually did our first sort of experiment with that with the National Health Service, where if you put in an idea about, for example, this is about the big health database, it will show you a box on the right side of the screen where you have relevant news stories connected to your idea. And we believe that using artificial intelligence and machine learning, and with our this other project is called Active Citizen, that's really going to empower people a lot in the future.
So what happens here is somebody puts in the idea, you get the opinions of the public, both for and against the idea, but you also get the news that are relevant to this. And this could be something else as well.
And this is an old screenshot. It's from the old non-app version of our software.
And finally,
oh yeah, sorry.
Last slide. Nothing to be sorry about. We noticed on your priority server that we had lots of, not lots, we had interesting traffic on one of newly created websites. And we sent an email to the person responsible, and it turned out that he was a teacher of a class of children in Australia, if I recall correctly. Yeah. And they had this system where they had a free time every week that they were supposed to do something with. And usually a teacher decided what to do with it or just called out for ideas, but he decided, I want to teach the children about democracy, and I also want them to decide themselves on what to do. So they used your priorities, put ideas in there, voted them up and down, points for and against it, and they were really ecstatic about it. We asked for quotes, and I'm not going to read this out, I hope you can read it, but the main thing there, it allows people to be heard. And for us, that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and we've seen that since the financial crisis in Iceland was actually a wake-up call, for, that people, both, saw the need for, having more oversight and asking for more influence, but also that they actually really enjoy it when they start it. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just thank you, Robert and Gunnar. I won't let you off the stage unless I ask you this question. Referring back to the warnings from Tim Toredo on Microsoft, what would you say about those that are non-included in the digital world?
Well, we face that question quite a lot in terms of our participatory budgeting projects in Iceland, and on a city level, it's very important to empower and include people by offering the opportunity, for example, to come to the library and work in those processes there. That if you are not literate on computers, and if it's a city project, I think it's a duty of the city to provide you with an opportunity to get help in participating.
And the thing is that there is no medium that we have access to that is totally all-inclusive. For example, here today, not everybody in the world can be here, but if we do it online, then everybody in the world can.
That's true. Well, thank you again. Thank you very much. And there is a lot of